Dear participants, dear organizers from Esri, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honor for me to be here with you today with a community of professionals and share some thoughts about the future. I do this very much in the spirit of the Club of Rome. I'm a member of the Club of Rome and I'm working on those issues since decades. On this long way, cooperating with Esri using the powerful tools of GIS was also at all times very helpful for us, and I was very happy to hear today what Jack Dangermond, as a spiritus rector behind this topic, gave us as visions for the future, to still even more empower those tools to solve the big challenges that are ahead of us. But I also liked his statement that these are challenges where we really don't know yet what to do. We are very good in solving our individual problems. We are unfortunately not so good in solving the problems of the globe. The topic is internationally debated under the headline of sustainable development. And I take you back to 1972. That was the time when the Club of Rome published Limits to Growth. But it was also the time where the United Nations had the Stockholm Conference, in which the developed world wanted to have a global contract to protect the environment and to protect the resource base. Something very dramatic happened. Indira Gandhi, as the then Prime Minister of India, stood up and said, "Stop this debate. You, the rich world, and you became rich by extreme, unsustainable behavior. And now that you made it, you won't have us in a contract which essentially will mean for us that we have to stay poor so that you as the rich can live in a healthy environment. Not with us." It took 20 years until the Rio conference in '92 that the world had a new agenda, sustainability. Essentially, it was a conference on environment and development. But essentially, it's two words, and we didn't find a way how to do it. In a sense, the problems became bigger, and last year we had Rio +20, and the issues more or less have been the same. So we have gigantic challenges before us. And before going more into the issue of what could be a solution, I have the pleasure that I have help from Esri, and that Kirsten will help me with a few animations in which we look into three important global issues. One is the population issue, the other is the issue of absolute poverty, and the third issue is the ecological footprint. We go through three topics to understand the challenges before I try to say something about how we might eventually deal with these challenges. So we start with the population issue. We see some animation concerning this issue, and Kerstin, the control is with you.
Thank you, Professor Radermacher. Yes. The story map shows estimated and projected population numbers for the world regions as classified by the United Nations. Each circle on the map represents the total number of people living in a region. This map is actually time-enabled and shows us how a region's population develops over time, starting from 1950 until 2100. So this really shows the topic of population growth.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think this animation is extremely powerful. If you go back to the time when Columbus found the way to the Americans, at that time maybe there were 600 million people on this earth, 600 million. And in 1825 it was 1 billion. 1965 we had 3 billion, and now we have 7 billion. And it will take 40 more years, and then we have 10 billion. We have an unbelievable dynamics in numbers, and the question is, can we have a decent life for 10 billion people? Can we have a life for 10 billion people in peace with the environment? Can we care for future generations? Now, it's important to understand where the dynamic today takes place, and you could see it very impressively in those animated images. As a country, the real hotspot is India. We have now 1.2 billion people in India alone. It's 2 times the world population at the time when Columbus went out to sail. We have now double as much people in India, but every year 10 million are added, and the next 40 years 400 million will be added to already 1.2 billion people. That will then be 1.6 billion people. What you could also see is the dynamics in Africa. This is not one country, it's many countries, but these many countries together at the moment have 1 billion people. It's the poorest part of the world, and in 2050 this will be 2 billion people. So in the most difficult hotspot we have, the number of people will double. This is one of the biggest challenges the world community is faced with, and the challenges become even bigger if we understand that climate change will exactly hit where the problems are the biggest problems anyhow. So this is a topic about the number of people. The second topic is about living standards of people, about rich and poor in a world that is extremely rich, but unfortunately has extreme numbers of poor, and that is the second topic, the second animation. Carsten, please.
Thank you. This atlas shows selected indicators from the United Nations Development Goals. One of those indicators is the extreme poverty baseline. The map now shows us the percentage of people in a country who live in extreme poverty. Those yellowish colors indicate a high poverty rate, blue a lower one. Those countries drawn in gray, they just don't offer numbers, so we don't have the figures for this one. What means extreme poverty? It means that those people live on less than $1.25 per day for a living. Back to you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think this is also very instructive. You see in particular again India. There is 2 ways to see India, which is a wonderful country. On the one hand, it's a hotspot in IT, and it's a nation that going is out into space. But it's also the country which has the highest number of people as a country below the $2 line. These people below $2 a day are in a very fragile situation. Among them is a group below $1 a day. We have still on this globe, and particularly in Africa, we have about 1 billion people with less than $1 a day. This is people that has very often hunger. It's interesting to go back. In the 17th century, we had 700 million people on this globe. 50% of people in Europe worked in agriculture. At that time, we had hunger in Europe quite regularly, and affected worldwide have been at that time 200 million people, which was about 30% of world population. Now today we are 7 billion people. Hunger is an issue for 1 billion people. Now you can learn now a lot about statistics, because you can say, okay, we have a wonderful improvement. We brought it down from 30% to 15%. Now it's only 15% people who have hunger. The backside is, this is 1 billion people. This is more people than did live in the 17th century. Then 30% had hunger. But even 100% were less people than today have hunger. Now you can ask yourself, is that a progress? The issue is hunger a relative or an absolute topic? Or let's put it this way, if you're hungry, does it help you that relatively less people have hunger than before? Most people would say, no, this is a topic of absolute status, and that means we have more problems with hunger than ever before in a world that is so rich as it has never been. We have now food for 13 billion people, but 1 billion people has a problem with nutrition, because half of the food, vegetarian food we produce, goes into animals, in particular cattle. That shows the challenges we have in spite of all our progress. And with this, we go into the third topic. The third topic is the ecological footprint, and I hand over again to Carsten.
Thank you. This is another story map. It explores the degree to which human consumption on nature's resources is exceeding nature's capacity to renew itself. We do have, on one hand, green nations on the map who consume less than their nature has on offer. On the other hand, we have red nations on the map who demand more from nature than their own ecosystems can renew. And that's the short summary for this map.
Okay, again, this map shows something very important. If you look into the so-called ecological footprint, that is, in a sense, the amount of biological resources used, and we see it in comparison to the capacity available, then it was interesting to see that from 1970 on, the US changed into the situation where they used more capacity than they have available. This need not to be a problem, because you can import capacity, and the map showed very powerful where around the globe are those that can export biological capacity. It's Russia, in particular Siberia, it's Canada, and it's Brasilia. They have the biological power, so to say. It's not so surprising, because Canada has a lot of biological space, but quite few people. We talk about 20 million. The same is with Siberia. Siberia is a biological powerhouse. It has 22 million people. Essentially, nobody lives there. In Brazil is more, but we have this power of the tropical rainforests. Still, the world as a whole is negative since maybe 20 years. We have now every year the so-called overshoot date. The overshoot date now is somewhere around August, September. That means a lot of the year we live on credit, and the credit essentially is creating the climate problem. So by creating that problem, we can live on this earth as we do, but we pay a very high price, and as I said, unfortunately, the price will be essentially paid by those that did contribute less than the others to the problem and have the biggest problems anyhow, which will create enormous issues of justice and fairness in the international political debate. So we had 3 inputs, and Carsten, I thank you very much for those 3 inputs, and I use this now as a basis to put up the question, what can we do? Where are the potentials for solutions? Now, looking into the history of man, it is clear that innovation is the key to improve the situation. We have a very big brain, we can cooperate, we can change things, and in particular, we can extend the cake. So we not live in a zero-sum game. If we do it right, we can massively increase the volume of services and goods available. And so if we want to have a good future, we need massive, massive innovations. And these innovations in particular, they must decrease resource use per unit, or what is called, we have to increase resource efficiency. But this has to happen in a way that the growth that we generate is an inclusive growth. That means everybody around the globe has to participate, has to profit, and in particular those that are in the worst situation have to profit most. Now, these topics are at the moment very high at the international agenda. I said last year we had Rio +20 in Rio. Rio +20 had 2 topics, and one topic was called green growth. I come to the other topic later. Essentially, Rio +20 said there's 2 things we have to achieve. And the one is the green growth issue, which means growth, yes, but only by having a corresponding increase in resource productivity. The Club of Rome position is we need a so-called total decoupling. We should have a 4% economic growth worldwide for the next 50 years on average, but at the same time, every year increase resource productivity by 5%. The Millennium Development Goals have been mentioned before, and these go until 2015. In moment, the world is working on the post-2015 agenda, reaching to 2030. The first report is out, and in this report, the most important formulation from my point of view is a requirement on the environment. Create jobs and create inclusive growth. Inclusive growth in which all participate and share, and in particular those who are worst off share most, is as much a topic as green growth. We should see green growth and we should see inclusive growth together as a growth that is compatible with sustainable development, with human rights issues, and with an ethics that is a universal global ethics. This is where we must go as a humankind, but the question is whether this is possible. And if one goes deeper in the issue, what has to happen that it can be achieved? We come to the second issue of Rio +20, and I said I will tell you this in a minute. It was green growth and global governance. Now, global governance is about the way that the states of the world cooperate. It is about the ability to share responsibility for all humans. The question whether people have enough to eat or not is not just an issue for a state in difficulties. It is an issue for the whole world. We have a joint responsibility. The formulation in the post-2015 agenda says we have a shared responsibility relative to our capacities. And those with the biggest capacities, of course, have the highest responsibility. But even those with small capabilities also have responsibilities, and we need a balanced approach. The question is, can we come to such a balanced approach? You know, we have tried this in the climate issue. The world community in Kyoto agreed to have a global climate regime by the end of 2012. This was the end of last year. You all know what happened in Durban. The world community agreed to disagree. And disagreeing, they agreed that they now want a contract by the end of 2015, coming into place by 2020. Now, this is a long way to go, and we don't know, no idea whether we will ever reach it. Now, can we reach it? This leads to the last issue I want to talk about here. And I go back to what Jack Dangermond said. He talked about the role of the individual, the role of the informed individual, the role of the educated, understanding issue now about the global problematic. This is a new situation. We never had so many people so educated, understanding so deeply the global issues. We now understand what it means to be in a global supply chain. We know that it is not enough that a brand company can present itself as being clean and then using a whole bunch of suppliers, and all the ugly stuff happens along the supply chain by those suppliers. And educated customers of brand companies no longer accept it. We have a trend that is called the moralization of the markets. Customers who understand require from their core companies to behave under an idea of global responsibility and get the things done. And we need always more of those educated, understanding citizens around the world. Eventually, we need billions of them. The question is, how do we get the complicated issue into their brains? You certainly know the classical sentence that says, one picture says more than 1,000 words. This is, in some sense, true. But sometimes one word says much more than 1,000 pictures. And as a mathematician, sometimes the right kind of differential equations, they say more than thousands of words and thousands of pictures. So if we want to understand, we need it all together. We need the mathematics with the differential equations, and we need the maps and the pictures, and we need the data and the words, and we need it all at the same time in one presentation. So maybe the key to a better world is a better entrance into brains willing to learn, and we need the right kind of tools to do it. I'm always looking for those tools, and I was very happy what I saw today with the WebGIS. It's a very powerful idea to make it even easier for us to communicate most difficult issues to millions and millions of people. It is at the key of a chance for a sustainable future. I very much hope we make it. And much of my hope is on technical people and engineers like those here in this room. but also on communicators and marketing people, also in NGOs, in the moralization of the markets towards an understanding that business is more than money making. It is in particular contributing to a better world. Thanks to all of you and all the best in all you do. Thank you.